Do you even know where you are sitting?
Judge Chambers's voice cut through the room like a blade dripping with disdain. His broad frame leaned back, the gleaming silver watch on his wrist, flashing under the lights. A polished emblem of old money and authority. That morning, inside a military courtroom, heavy with a solemn authority, Rachel Monroe, a black woman with weary, unkempt hair and hollowed eyes from lack of sleep, slipped quietly into the room and sat at the end of the table. The entire chamber seemed to tighten, but instead of respect, she was met with snickers and condescending stares. The judge's smirk lingered, feeding the laughter that erupted around her, reducing Rachel to a nameless shadow. Yet only minutes later, when the legal arguments hit a dead end, Rachel lowered her head and whispered 4 words. Just 4. And the arrogant judge shot to his feet, his face drained white as if he had heard a death sentence. Rachel looked like any ordinary woman, her wrinkled blouse hastily tucked into a long black skirt, her scuffed loafers padding so softly they left no sound behind. No one paid her any mind. No one thought she belonged in a place so drenched in power. But her hands, steady, precise, moved across her notepad, capturing every word without missing a detail. The air reeked of stale coffee and polished wood, a space both imposing and suffocating where people like her were treated more as furniture than as equals. The lawyers, clerks, and officers in the room regarded Rachel as nothing more than a walking chair. Carter, the defense attorney, sharp in a tailored suit and slicked-back hair, tossed a folder toward her. "Take this down for me, mute secretary," he sneered. Laughter rang out sharp and cutting. Rachel didn't flinch. Her hand caught the folder smoothly, her fingers brushing over the striking red seal, then set it neatly beside her. For a fleeting moment, her calm was almost unsettling, like she knew far more than anyone dared imagine. The closed-door hearing whittled down to only a few powerful faces. Chambers leaned back in his chair, his eyes dripping with disdain as he locked them on Rachel. "Do you even know where you're sitting?" His heavy voice drew chuckles from clerks. Carter joined in, muttering just loud enough, "What is she even doing here, secretary or janitor?" The laughter grew louder, crueler. Rachel paused her pen for a beat, then resumed writing, her eyes fixed on the file on that red seal that seemed to hold a meaning only she could read. Ellen, the young prosecutor with a sharp bob and a counterfeit smile, wasn't about to miss her chance. She nudged her coffee cup forward, red fingernails tapping against the porcelain. "Since you're just sitting there, pour me some coffee, would you?" The sweetness in her tone was poisoned with contempt. The clerks chuckled again. "She's probably used to that kind of work," one whispered. Rachel's hand tightened around her pen, then eased. She pushed the cup back, locking eyes with Ellen. Her voice was low but firm. "I don't work for you." The room froze. Ellen's smile shattered. The mocking laughter evaporated. When the digital files suddenly locked for lack of access codes, tension spiked. 2 IT staffers tapped furiously, mumbling about clearance levels. Carter drummed his pen impatiently, scoffing, "This is why I hate trials run like amateur classrooms." The whole room waited. Rachel tilted, her head fingers gliding over the keyboard. In less than 10 seconds, 12 keystrokes cracked the barrier, and the archive bloomed across the screen. Silence fell heavy. One IT tech, round glasses slipping down his nose, stammered, "How did you know that Rachel closed the laptop without a word?" An older clerk whispered, "Only a level 5 intelligence officer would know that sequence." Every gaze shifted to Rachel, but she was already back to her page. At the water station during recess, Ellen still wouldn't quit. She spoke loudly, her words carrying, she probably just Googled it. Anybody can memorize a string of characters. Clerks cackled one, even mimicking Rachel's hunched posture. This time, Rachel rose. She poured water slowly past Ellen and tipped the bottle just enough to let a single drop stain her polished shoes. Careful Rachel murmured, her tone soft as silk, but sharp as a blade water leaves a mark. Ellen's face burned crimson. The laughter collapsed. The air thickened with unease. Rachel returned to her seat, water bottle in hand, every step tracked by the room's eyes. Chambers held his stone-cold mask unmoved. When Rachel quietly pointed out a gap in Carter's argument regarding jurisdiction, Chambers' cold laughter cut through the silence. "So now you want to teach us law?" The laughter roared again, fake and cruel. A guard by the door muttered to his partner. She probably was just an information clerk in some back office. Rachel stayed unbothered, opening the file to reveal a hand-drawn sheet covered in sharp lines and cryptic symbols. The room went deathly still. Carter, usually a pillar of confidence, froze. His gaze latched onto the drawing like it might leap off the page. Rachel leaned back, arms folded, waiting calmly. It wasn't a doodle. It was a precise map of an operation never disclosed. Silent Wolf, a CIA mission so buried official records denied its existence. Carter's smirk dissolved into panic. Who gave you that?" he stammered. Rachel lifted her eyes steady and unshakable. "I wrote it." 2 words, but they smashed the arrogance in the room like glass. The weight of silence pressed down. A young lawyer who always fidgeted with his wedding band stopped cold. Chambers slammed his gavel for order, but his own gaze kept darting to the sheet. No one spoke. The next day, Marcus, the longtime clerk with the gaudy tie, tested her. Adjusting his glasses, he leaned over Rachel's desk, smirking. "So you're the mysterious woman now? Got any more tricks?" Nervous laughter trickled. Rachel didn't answer. She opened a worn notebook, its pages crowded with symbols, dates, coordinates. Marcus's grin collapsed. He staggered back, glasses sliding down his nose. "Where did you get this?" His voice rasped, stripped of mockery. Rachel closed the book and set it aside. Her calm movement sent ripples of unease through the room. People stared differently now, curious, wary, piecing together a mystery with no solution. Chambers, on the other hand, grew sharper. He demanded a background check, certain she was a spy. "Submit your personal file now," he barked. Rachel slid forward a thin folder. A soldier flipped it open and reported 5 years blank. Chambers slammed the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "Where were you? Who gave you the right to sit here?" Rachel's silence became the sharpest answer of all. It dissolved the accusations before they could land. At that moment, a clerk quietly sifted through old records and stumbled upon a faint, faded print. The black and white photo showed Rachel standing in the ranks of a covert unit, a medal pinned to her chest. Underneath it read Phantom Echo. The name alone made those who understood its meaning shiver. An old general limping in the back of the room muttered in a trembling voice, "Phantom Echo. I thought that unit erased every trace." Chambers snatched the page, but his voice was no longer steady. Rachel remained unshaken. Her fingers brushed lightly over her skirt, as though wiping away an old memory. From the rear seats, a man rose, former Admiral Turner, once the commander of Phantom Echo. He said nothing, only watched. His presence cast a long shadow over the courtroom. The tension rose to its peak. In a later session, a young officer named Daniels, polished and ambitious, suddenly shot to his feet and pointed at Rachel. "Who is she to sit here? Does she even have authority?" His voice thundered, but Rachel simply tapped her pen twice against the desk, a signal predetermined. Daniels froze, his confidence shattered. The old general cleared his throat, and Daniels sank back into his chair, face flushed, silent. Everything seemed to return to stillness. Rachel resumed her notes as if nothing had happened. Then Clara, the stenographer, with a habit of chewing her pen, delivered her cruelest line yet. "I heard she's just a low-level assistant. Probably slept with someone to get this seat." The words fell sharp as blades. The room waited for Rachel's reaction. Calmly, Rachel set her bag on the table and drew out an old, scratched dog tag. The name stamped on it wasn't hers, but that of a soldier from Phantom Echo. Clara went pale, her pen dropping from her lips. The whispers died instantly. Rachel slid the tag back, returned to her files, and the air grew heavier than ever. Chambers refused to accept defeat. His voice cut like a knife. "I don't care who you were. In here I am the law." The courtroom froze. Every eye turned to Rachel, waiting for her to crumble under the weight. But she lifted her head, meeting his stare of authority with a gaze stripped of anger or fear, only pity. That look unsettled Carter in his chair and silenced the whisperers. Chambers pressed harder, but his own voice trembled. Rachel didn't need to speak. Her eyes alone tipped the scales of power inside a chamber thought untouchable. "You think I'm afraid of your shadowy past?" Chambers sneered his laugh, echoing coldly. "This is my court. You're nothing but a ghost. I am the voice here." Rachel sat with her hands folded, silent. She tilted her head slightly like a question left hanging in the air. The room chilled as though the oxygen had been pulled out. One morning before the hearing, Greg, the burly security officer known for his booming laugh, decided to make a joke. He dropped a stack of papers onto Rachel's desk, sending pages flying. "Oops, sorry. Guess you're used to cleaning up messes, huh?" Laughter rippled through the room. Rachel bent down, gathered each sheet slowly, carefully. When she rose, she returned them to Greg, but one slipped free, a classified record marked with a red seal. Greg's face drained. He reached to snatch it back, but Rachel was quicker. "You dropped this," she said softly, her voice sharp as glass. Greg's grin dyed his hand trembling as he reclaimed the stack. The laughter vanished. During recess, Rachel gathered her papers, every motion deliberate. Chambers kept talking with his aide, not noticing. But as she passed by, Rachel whispered 4 syllables. "Sable Echo 1. Chambers froze, blood draining from his face. He lurched, upright chair screeching. No one knows that code," he stammered. Rachel didn't stop walking. Her footsteps clicked softly against the tile, then she turned. "I heard you call it in the Syrian woods 2 in the morning, when you begged to withdraw and left your men behind." The room went deathly still, even breathing felt heavy. Chambers clutched the bench hands, shaking. Rachel closed her bag and walked away, leaving behind an air thick enough to choke. In the hallway, a reporter named Laya, sharp-eyed heels clicking, blocked her path. "You're the ghost, aren't you? Got any secrets you want to spill?" Other reporters swarmed, pens and recorders ready. Rachel stopped, the strap of her bag slipping on her shoulder. She looked at Laya, then at the recorder. "You're asking the wrong person." Her voice was soft, but weighted, forcing Laya's hand to lower the mic. The others stepped back. Pens stilled. Rachel walked on, leaving them rooted, unsettled, questioning. The fallout came fast. Within a week, military papers announced Judge Chambers' sudden resignation, no explanation given. Rumors spread he had been undone by a ghost in the courtroom, silenced with a single whisper. Carter, the smooth attorney, lost his position when leaked emails revealed his mockery of security protocols. The young lawyer with the wedding band fidget lost his coveted conference seat. The guard who once called Rachel a secretary was abandoned by his peers, cut out from their circle. No explosions, no drama. Only truth, quiet but relentless, found its way to each of them. Ellen, the bob-haired prosecutor, tried to keep her pride. The next week, she returned her smile stretched thin. During a hearing, she ignored Rachel addressing the new judge with feigned confidence. But when she couldn't find a crucial file, panic set in. Her hands shook as she searched frantically. Rachel slid a sheet across the table, the missing file still bearing its red seal. "You left it in the lounge," Rachel said evenly. Ellen's face burned red, her smile gone. Everyone watched, and no one dared laugh at Rachel again. Rachel kept showing up, same seat, same wrinkled blouse. But the atmosphere had shifted. The new judge, a woman with gray-streaked hair and stern eyes, noticed her from the start. In one session, she paused, nodded slightly. "Monroe, we'd like to hear you." Chairs scraped as the room went silent. Rachel rose each step steady as she approached the stand. And something remarkable happened. People stood not by order, but by instinct. Out of respect. Her testimony was brief, her tone clear and composed, but her gaze sweeping the room spoke volumes beyond words. Years earlier, she had stood in another place, dust swirling down a road, a Humvee rumbling the radio, crackling Sable Echo 1. She had been there when the order to retreat came, when soldiers were abandoned in the dark. Her hands, then clutching a map, had marked every position unseen by others. Now those same hands held only pen and paper, steady as ever. No one knew the full story, but the way Rachel stood, the quiet certainty in her eyes told enough. One day, Sarah, the eager intern, desperate to impress, handed Rachel a file and whispered to a colleague, "Why does she get to touch this?" "She's nothing." She thought the whisper would vanish into the air, but it echoed through the room and everyone waited to see how Rachel would respond. Rachel froze her hand, pausing on the stack of files. She separated one document, a classified report with redacted sections, and handed it back to Sarah. Her voice was low but firm. "This isn't for you." Sarah's face drained of color as she realized her mistake. The room fell silent. Her colleague stepped back, leaving Sarah alone to face the weight of her blunder. Rachel didn't look at her again. She simply resumed sorting the papers, her expression unchanged. From that day on, no one whispered behind Rachel's back anymore. The mocking laughter disappeared. Clerks who once ridiculed her now gave small nods when she passed. The IT staff, still embarrassed by the password incident, avoided her eyes. The old general with a limp, who had once seen Phantom Echo firsthand, stopped her in the hallway and quietly handed her a folded sheet of paper. It was an old photo of the Phantom Echo team. Rachel stood in the center, younger then, but with the same steady eyes. She tucked the picture into her bag and kept walking. No one asked. They didn't need to. One afternoon, Marcus, the clerk with the gaudy tie, tried to make amends. Carrying a cup of coffee, he offered a sheepish smile. "Hey, no hard feelings, right?" Rachel glanced at the cup, then met his eyes. She set it down on the table, her tone calm but decisive. "I don't drink coffee." There was no cruelty in her words, only clarity. Marcus froze his bright tie, suddenly too loud, too out of place. He muttered something and backed away, shoulders slumped. For the first time, the room saw Marcus without a smile. Carter tried to save face. A week later, he returned with a fake grin, acting as though nothing had happened. Spotting Rachel in the hallway, he called out loudly, "Still tapping out secrets, huh?" His voice carried desperate for attention. Rachel gave no reply, only a long, steady look. His grin faltered, twisted, and broke. After that, Carter never came back. The young female lawyer, who once twisted her ring caught up in Carter's scandal, grew quieter. She sat at the back, fidgeting with the band, her eyes following Rachel like someone chasing a riddle they could never solve. The new judge ran the courtroom differently. No shouting, no show of force. She simply looked and people listened. When Rachel spoke, the room fell still, not because they were ordered, but because they couldn't do otherwise. Once during recess, a young clerk dropped a file. He scrambled to collect the pages, mumbling apologies. Rachel bent down to help, her fingers brushing over the red seal. "Careful," she said, her voice soft but steady. The young clerk flushed, rushing out. Those who watched understood Rachel's words carried weight. Always. In one session, a visiting lawyer named Paul, loud-voiced, puffed with arrogance, pointed at Rachel and joked, "I don't get it. Why is she sitting at that table? Maybe she's here to take lunch orders." A few chuckles broke out, strained and awkward. Rachel said nothing. She opened her bag, withdrew an old military key etched with a code, and placed it on the table. Paul froze mid-laugh. The old general at the back shifted forward, his eyes fixed. No one asked questions. Rachel slid the key back, her hand unwavering. The silence weighed heavier than any words. Then one day, Rachel's husband appeared. No one had expected him. He entered the courtroom, tall, quiet, his coat neatly folded over his arm. He didn't need an introduction, didn't need a name. The air shifted like a storm sweeping in. Carter's replacement faltered mid-sentence. The young lawyer stopped twisting her ring. The old general stood tall, forgetting his limp. Rachel remained still, bag in hand, her eyes calm. The man gave her a single nod before taking a seat in the back. No one spoke to him. They didn't need to. His presence alone was enough. The consequences spread further. The guard who once mocked Rachel was reassigned to a forgotten desk job. Rumors about him spread fast, cutting into his reputation like a knife. The young female lawyer was pushed out of important meetings, her name vanishing from memos. Carter's firm released a statement severing ties. Online, his name flooded forums linked to his leaked emails bragging about shortcuts and security. The internet did the rest. Rachel didn't need to act. The truth found its way. One morning, Leia, the sharp-eyed reporter with short hair, was waiting outside again. Her heels clicked against the marble as she drew near. "Just give me one line," she pleaded, her smile brittle. Rachel stopped the strap of her bag slipping slightly on her shoulder. She glanced at Leia's notebook and spoke. "Write this. The truth doesn't need a headline." Leia froze, her pen suspended. Rachel walked on her steps, silent against the polished floor. The other reporters lowered their cameras, struck speechless. Day after day, Rachel still came. Same seat, same wrinkled blouse, same steady hands. But the air was different. No more ridicule. People didn't look at her with fear now, but with respect, even understanding. Rachel no longer needed to prove anything. Her silence was enough to fill the room. The way she folded her bag, the way she walked out, the glance she gave you in passing, each carried more weight than 1,000 words. Rachel was no shadow. She was someone who had been there, who had witnessed what others dared not name. She carried it still quiet, unyielding every single day. This wasn't just her story. It was for everyone who had ever been dismissed, ever pushed aside. Those who stayed silent not out of weakness, but because they knew their truth didn't need to be shouted. You've felt that, haven't you? The sting when others thought less of you. The heaviness when you held your silence, believing one day they would see. You weren't wrong, and you're not alone. Rachel's story is also yours. She walked through it all, and so can you. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel to continue this journey through betrayal, survival, and finally healing.